The Upshot's coverage of the USDGC and Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship is brought to you by Skybreed Discs. Go to skybreeddiscs.com for all your disc golf needs. Free shipping on orders over $50. Cheap flat rate shipping on orders under that point. They have a huge selection of discs and apparel and accessories. It's just a one-stop shop for all things disc golf. skybreeddiscs.com. Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood, and joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is now a couple of days since the conclusion of the U.S. Disc Golf Championships and the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship, and we've all had a chance to kind of soak it in, take it in, think about it a little bit more, and really awesome to be able to catch up with everybody, and enjoyed having some of you on live, asking questions, hitting us up in the chat. And we've got some more analysis today. We've got a ton of fun segments today. We're going to look at some key numbers from the weekend. We've got some quick hitter stuff. And we're also going to talk what is the state of the Player of the Year race. So it should be a fun one. Josh, first things first, the San Francisco Giants are the greatest team in baseball history. Okay? This team is unbelievable. They go out there last night. I couldn't stay awake. I went to bed, which is terrible, but that's the life of being a West Coast sports fan that lives in the Eastern time zone.
What are you doing, Charlie?
What am I doing? I should move to California. And so I wake up and I see they win 1-0, and I'm just like, this team is insane. Like Brandon Crawford makes two of the greatest plays you'll see. Evan Longoria breaks his slump with a home run, and we use two relief pitchers over 5 innings who just mow everybody down. It's incredible. Against the Dodgers. It's the best lineup in the major leagues. Incredible.
The faster the Dodgers get sent home, the better, in my opinion. So
yes, sir.
I've been checking those scores. I also did not watch it because I also enjoy sleep. But every time I just check the score. It's the first thing I do. And very pleased to see that the Giants had won that. Disappointed to see the Red Sox has won, but we can't win them all.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit more to start today's show about the final round in MPO. We talked, of course, about McBeth's heroics down the stretch, and we didn't even hit on everything, right? We talked about his putt on 17 that was ultra clutch from 60 feet for the birdie, a birdie that he ultimately absolutely ended up needing. But let's go back. On 15, McBeth was way out of position off his tee shot. And his second shot left him in the woods without a real look at the basket. And so he throws his third shot kind of just like this little roller, and he gets it out into a clearing that had a look at the basket. And if you were watching the stream, you saw his putt there. He's down the alleyway, light in the background, and he's lit up in the background with the basket in the foreground, and he hits a putt from about 40 feet. And every one of these putts down the stretch was so critical. Monster putt on 15, and that's after making about a 40-footer on 14 for birdie. So he saves par on 15, then he hits the monster birdie putt on 17, and he almost ends the round with a putt on 18 that he was running. And, this is all, of course, meanwhile, Kyle Klein's score is going all crazy because of, I'm not sure, UDisc issues, internet issues with UDisc. Somebody clicked the wrong button. And so Paul doesn't even necessarily know where he stands. So he's running everything. And just think about the clutchness down the stretch. In the final 5 holes, he hit 3 circle 2 putts. And he didn't miss inside the circle. It was just an epic performance to close out this round and then get into the playoff. We've got a great stat for you about his performance in a playoff in a little bit. But one of the things that stood out to me as I was watching Josh down the just the back nine in general, everyone was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Was it wind? Was it pressure? Like there were people taking double bogeys all over the place. Ricky has a stretch where he goes bogey, par, double bogey. And, really the only player that really didn't make a big mistake was Kyle Klein. He didn't have a bogey on the round, but, Drew Gibson was making mistakes. Joel Freeman couldn't buy a putt in the back nine. Paul McBeth, double bogeys on 12. And had he also struggled early in the round where he couldn't get a birdie for like 6 holes. Mm-hmm. And so there was just a lot of errors. Not always something that you see in the final round. Oftentimes you see somebody really seize control by playing really well, but nobody, save Kyle Klein, really was locked in. I mean, you look at the other scores up at the top, the final round scores. McBeth shot a 4 under. Ricky 7 under. Drew Gibson 4 under. Joel Freeman 5 under. Nate Sexton 5 under. Chris Dickerson just went nowhere. He was shot even. And a lot of that was due to those holes along the back, like 10 through 15-ish, where there's a lot of wide open airspace, a lot of OB, and wind. So do you chalk it up to conditions or pressure?
I think it's both. I think if you put those guys on a casual round, on OTB skins round, out in those kind of conditions, they probably shoot great. When you do it at a major, life changes really fast. I think, though, that proves something really important, though, about McBeth's game and about McBeth's mental fortitude, and about how good McBeth really is. It was his ability to play golf. Like, I think in the truest sense, not throw discs, but play golf and keep an understanding of the score until, the score, which the more I think about that, when I was watching, I was like, wow, this is bad. But the more I think about it, could you imagine 4th and 1, you're on the 30-yard line, and the scoreboard is flashing between you being down by 2 or down by 4. and your coach is like, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're going to do. Like, that's what it was. That's what was happening. So anyway, now that I'm done with the UDisc issues, the wherewithal to throw a roller to leave yourself with a 40-footer on 15, to run that putt on 17 with 0 hesitations or reservations, to run that putt on 18 with 0 reservations. I mean, he even though he was not shooting his best round, it still felt like Paul McBeth felt like he was in the driver's seat.
But don't forget, Josh, he went behind. Kyle Klein took the lead in the back of the back nine. I believe it was hole 16. Because Kyle Klein got back-to-back birdies on 15 and 16. So he tied up McBeth and then took the lead. Now, they were not totally in sequence, right? Because McBeth was on a card behind him. So, and at some point, 2 holes behind him. So I don't remember fully the exact sequence of when Klein was in the lead. But once McBeth had played 16, he was down by a stroke.
Yes. He
needed a birdie just to have a chance to get into the playoff, and he got it with that putt on 17.
You're right. And I'm not saying that McBeth was in the driver's seat. I'm saying I think McBeth still felt in complete control of that tournament, that he still could win this because he knew what he was going to do. He knew how he was going to play, and he knew what he was capable of. And I think that's the difference, right? It's not that McBeth did have the lead. It's that McBeth did still have a semblance of control over his game, because otherwise, if you didn't feel like you were in control, if you felt like the tournament was running away from you, then you try and do too much on 16, or you try and do too much on 15 when you're out of position. We see it all the time, right? And possibly McBeth pulls away heroics, On 15, that little flick roller to get 40 feet out probably is something more aggressive to try and get closer to the basket because you're worried about the risk of missing a circle 2 putt. When you are still confident in your ability to win that tournament, though, that's when you make smart golf decisions.
Well, think about this. On 10, and I just want to give a plug. Kingsley Flett has a column up about decision-making and decision fatigue, and perhaps the challenge of Winthrop Gold is that you have to make so many difficult decisions, and it can cause you to make errors later in the round, especially when you're under the pressure of a final round. And perhaps we saw some of that. But McBeth on 10, a lot of players go for the eagle, right? They run it off the tee, try to get to the green, and make the eagle putt. Wysocki got the eagle. Joel Freeman got the eagle. And at the time, those were huge momentum shifts for those two guys, as McBeth was coming off this long stretch where he didn't get a birdie, and then he bogeys 9. And so people are catching him, right? His lead has evaporated at that point. And on 10, he doesn't go for it. Drew Gibson went for it, overturned his disc, goes OB. He ended up taking double bogey. McBeth laid up. I don't think I've ever seen McBeth lay up on that hole. I'm sure he's done it at some point in the past however many years he's been playing this tournament, but I personally have always seen him run this and often get the eagle, but he laid up and took the sure birdie. And you talk about making golf decisions, there you go.
Yes.
You getting a birdie there, sure, it's not as good as getting the eagle, duh, but the risk reward starts to get off when you're throwing into the headwind, and if you miss, you might knock yourself out of the tournament. Right? If he goes for it there and ends up taking double bogey, that's a 3-shot swing. Even if he gets the bogey, right? It's a 2-shot swing, and it becomes that much more difficult for him to have a chance to get in, and he probably loses to Kyle Klein. And of course, you can go back and look at any little decision in the round and say that was the moment. And I'm not trying to say that this was the moment, but it's emblematic of the decision-making process that he had. And that's what you get when you're a veteran player who's done a lot of winning at majors and knows when to pick your spots, right? So he picked his spots. He picked his spot on 17. I think he picked his spot on 18, going for it, not only going for the green from a kind of being out of position way down the fairway and left, but then going for the putt itself, which seemed crazy, but I mean, he almost made it. And wow, that's just gritty championship stuff.
Well, and remember that, Paul McBeth is back of the box because he took the bogey on hole 9. Chris Dickerson and Drew Gibson both go for the eagle and double bogey. And it's 3-stroke swing on the lead card there because the guys at the top aren't lead card. Drew Gibson is, but after that, it's surrounded by chase card.
Yeah, I mean, Joel Freeman was, what was he, 8 under through 10?
Yeah.
Like he was on absolute fire. It was looking like he might win the tournament.
So, seeing what plays out from the other players had to play a significant role in that decision making. But at the end of the day, you don't lay up. There are 2 reasons you lay up. The first one is because you feel like you can win, you can wait and live to fight another day and another hole, and know that you're confident and have holes that you can do so on. Because you are conceding a stroke. You are choosing deliberately to concede a stroke to probably a lot of players on that in the field, which was the case. Like we talked about, Ricky got the eagle, Joel Freeman got the eagle, so he had to deliberately choose to concede a stroke to the rest of the field, which meant either he was waiting to fight his battles on a different hole and confident that he could do so, or he was throwing in the towel. I don't think it's the latter. So my bet is that he still felt comfortable with where his score was and where the rest of the round was as well.
Yeah, and you have to avoid catastrophic failure, right? They talk about in finance, risk of ruin, right? You can make a bad investment, but if you go all in and you mortgage your house to buy Bitcoin and then the bottom falls out of the Bitcoin market, you're ruined financially. You can't lose all your money. It is so much easier to lose your money than it is to compound your money. And so you have to have a game plan that allows you to not have that catastrophic failure. And, we saw catastrophic failures happen to multiple players. Drew Gibson, I mean, he did his best to hang around, but he took back-to-back double bogeys on 10 and 11, and that was it. He actually played great down the stretch. He went 6 under from 12 through 18. That's better than anybody else in the field, but he gave away 4 strokes right there, and it was done. Joel Freeman, 11, 12, 13, 14. He's on the green in regulation, all 4 holes, misses all 4 circle 1 birdie putts, and he was basically out of it at that point. And then, never birdied down the stretch. Took a bogey on 16, double bogeyed 18. I mean, it was a great run.
Mm-hmm.
And he hadn't missed a single, he missed a circle 1 putt on hole 1, but, had been really, really solid on the putting green. Made one from 38 feet, had a multiple 25 to 30 footers, and then went cold at the worst possible moment. And I mean, I think that's pressure.
Yep.
I think that's pressure. I think Joel Freeman knew, oh my gosh, like, I can win this tournament, and it just makes it hard to execute on simple tasks like putting because your heart's pounding and you're feeling physiologically strange, and boom, it's over. You can't miss those opportunities. Eagle McMahon took himself out of the tournament basically on hole 1 when he took a triple bogey. Eagle McMahon, man, such a good player, and just cannot seem to find the rhythm at majors. Like, we're going to talk a little bit more about it when we get to the our Player of the Year discussion, because I mean, he's obviously in that discussion, but he was 8th at Worlds and 9th at USDGC. I mean, still top 10, but like, considering how well he's played this year, it's pretty disappointing.
Oh, it is.
So I mean, it makes it that much more special for McBeth. This wasn't some vintage McBeast Saturday, 11 under, shut it all down, incredible round. I mean, anything but.
Mm-hmm.
He had one of the worst scores of anybody in the top 10. And it was really that he made the right shots at the right moments, and obviously had 3 rounds in the bank that allowed him to get the win.
When you were talking, we talked earlier in the week about how there was some weird voodoo going on at that tournament. And I'm just watching Kyle Klein make this charge. I was like, Charlie called it. He called it. And I guess at the end of the day, though, you're right. It wasn't McBeast who just turns on and beats everybody by 18 strokes or 8 strokes or, even, not even very many strokes. It was but any strokes, actually. It was a playoff. You're right. It wasn't. But it's one of those times when you see the look of determination on McBeth's face, like on that putt on 17, and you're like, you couldn't pay me enough money to be in Kyle Klein's shoes right now. Because it's one of those times that it feels like McBeth is going, and Worlds felt this way too, right? Before James Conner hit the miracle, it felt like, McBeth is locked in right now. And when he hit that putt on 17, and I know that's late in the round, but when he hit that putt on 17 and was hitting the clutch putts since really hole 13, it felt in a sense like the McBeth, the biggest crutch that McBeth had all season was the putter. All season. He could not get his putter to work well. And when hole 13 hit and you watch the way that his putter was keeping him in the game, not his drives, it was at that time I was like, Kyle Klein has to watch out. I mean, and I know he's ahead of him and there's only so much he can do, but we said it all season. If McBeth's putter comes back, you better watch out. And here it was at the most important stretch of the tournament, and that's why he won. Yeah,
I mean, so critical the putting down the stretch. Let's talk a little bit about Kyle Klein. I mean, first of all, this guy's going to get the promotion to the top Discmania level of sponsorship. I mean, he has to, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, what a season he's had. Getting an Elite Series win, almost getting this win at USDGC. You know, put together the best final round, you know, in challenging conditions of anybody. And I don't really know what more you need to see to think that, wow, this kid is really special and is going to be a future major champion. I mean, I think it's almost a lock, given the combination of talents that he has. He didn't miss a putt inside circle 1. He went 2 for 5 from circle 2. He made good on almost all of his good opportunities for birdie. And, you know, it kept himself at least in the mix. You know, one more round like this one, and he probably would have won this tournament. And so, I mean, really exciting to see what he's got going for him. He never went OB. As you know, as we've talked about, that's such a critical part of success out here. Somebody that did go OB was Ricky Wysocki, who, of course, is still trying to win a USDGC. He finished in 3rd place, had such a torrid start. He got 7 of the first 8 birdies, but then just had that stretch in the middle where people were struggling. He goes bogey 9, eagle 10, bogey 11, par, double bogey, and basically was out of it at that point. And, you know, the putter was great. It was just, he went OB 5 times and, you know, nullifying that eagle on 10 with bogeys on either side of it. I think that's really what cost him more than anything else. A great opportunity for him. It still feels to me like he's going to get one at some point, but he's just come so close so many times and not been able to close the deal at USDGC.
You know, it's just that tournament that gets him. This feels like, to me, the Drew Brees never winning MVP story. That is just tragic. It's tragic. And I hope Ricky gets one, but some players just have those things where you just don't get a ring. Sorry, Charles Barkley.
Yeah, you know, and Ricky's obviously he's won a couple of world championships.
Oh yeah, wouldn't be shocked if he won another one.
One of the finest players of a generation. Yeah, I agree. But I mean, he's got to want this one so bad.
Oh yeah. All right, so I got a question for you, Charlie. Who do you think wins the USDGC first? Ricky Wysocki, Calvin Heimberg, Eagle McMahon, or Kyle Klein?
Wow. Oh, gosh, this tournament's hard to predict. I think Ricky's going to get one.
Okay.
I think Ricky's going to get one first. He's like still in his prime,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, absolutely could have won it this year. Of course, you could say the same thing about Kyle, and really even to some extent Eagle. I mean, Eagle was in the conversation in the final round until, you know, he started off by taking a triple bogey. So it's, you know, they're all capable, obviously. And we've seen, obviously, Calvin had a terrible USDGC this year, but has played very well here in the past. Almost ran down Chris Dickerson in 2020. But I think Ricky's going to get it first. It just feels like it's destiny to me. But it wasn't to be this year.
All right.
You say the same thing?
No, I don't, actually.
Who do you think?
I think it's Calvin. I think that Calvin has proven a little bit better than Eagle. His ability in terms of USDGC and at Worlds, it just feels like Calvin is, in the past couple seasons, really been present at those stages and in the conversation. And Eagle really hasn't been as much, you know, but this year being the exception. I think Kyle Klein was definitely going to win a major. I would not be shocked at all if Kyle Klein does win a USDGC eventually. But I think we have to remember as well how young Calvin Heimberg is that he just graduated college. He is going to continue to come into form. So I definitely think that he's going to be the first one to get it.
I mean, what's interesting is to think about who's going to be the next one of those guys to win a major, period. Like, Ricky hasn't won a major since his last Worlds win, right? And that was in 16, I think. Eagle won Konopishte 3 or 4 years ago. Calvin has not won a major. Kyle has not won a major. Who's going to get the next major, period?
Well, Charlie, I don't really know how to call the Champions Cup, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, that's going to be wild, huh? I think Eagle's going to have a good shot at that one.
I worry about Eagle at the course, though. At the what is it called? Is it Fort Jackson? Is that
the IDGC?
The IDGC, yeah. That's one that kind of feels like Winthrop, where you can see holes that go from bad to worse very quickly. And I feel like Eagle is someone who is really good at going from bad to worse really quickly. So, I think he's got the skills, but I think that a match play, I probably like Ricky better for Champions Cup.
He got knocked out in round 1 by Emerson Keith at Match Play Championship.
Yeah, I know. But, that doesn't mean I'm going to pick against him to... Okay, let me ask you this, Charlie. Match Play Championship happens again, a rewind in a month. Are you picking Emerson Keith now?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. All right, let's move on to some quick hitter questions. I'm going to kick it off with this one for you, Josh.
Okay.
Who was this weekend's biggest surprise?
I say, let's see. I think Ezra Aderhold. I think 12th place is a really good finish for someone who has been criticized for not having the most technical or precise game. In fact, when we talk about the words precision, that's probably Ezra Aderhold is very much not at the top. And so I felt like it was a good display of some of his potential and his ability moving forward to do well. And he was very consistent. I mean, his scores were all within 4 strokes for all four rounds, which I think bodes very well. And it wasn't just, 110 under and then 3 rounds that were cumulative 5 under. So good weekend for Ezra Aderhold, I think.
I like it. My answer to this question is Martin Hendel. He actually ended up falling down the leaderboard quite a bit in the final round. Took a 3 over, just really rough stretch from 11 to 18 where he didn't get a birdie, and I think he went 7 over in that stretch. But he was on the lead card. Here's a guy that no one is expecting to be up at the top of a major championship, and showing that Canada's finest can get the job done. And I think he was a big surprise for just about everybody to see him up there at the top. Ended up falling 10 spots to 14th, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he was impressive, and he got the round started pretty well. Just got bit by those middle of the early back 9 holes, 11, 12, 13, 14, that stretch. So second question, Charlie, for you. This is a little bit of a surprise, but who was the biggest letdown? Well, I mean, for me, I think the answer is obvious. I think it's Paige Pierce. To go from being the prohibitive favorite, both coming into the event and then, coming out through the first 2 rounds and really looking fantastic, 5-stroke lead, and then just completely imploding in the 3rd round. It's a huge letdown. There's no way around it. I mean, it was a disastrous round. She actually played pretty well in the final round. She shot even, so bounced back, but it's a huge letdown for somebody who kind of had their heart broken at Worlds to be in a great position to win a not major, and had looked so good, shot the best round of the tournament, and then shot one of the worst.
My pick is Calvin. He took himself out in round 1. I mean, round 1, and it was over. He just was not in it, and he then continued not to play well all weekend. So it wasn't even... I mean, he played okay, but he still only finished 1 under par. And I think even after a bad round, he could have finished higher than that. And so I wonder if it's just the case of, your heart's not really in it after that point. But yeah, really, really disappointed in Calvin's play. I think he had a lot more potential for this tournament.
You know something? Calvin missed the cash.
Wow.
Calvin missed the cash. A lot of good players missed the cash.
Wow.
Let me give you some players who missed the cash. Thomas Gilbert, Albert Tom, Cam Colglazer, Mason Ford, who just won a tournament. Anthony Barella, Kevin Jones missed the cut. Shot an even par. He shot a 75 in round 4. What is that? That's
+9.
Wow. Nathan Queen, somebody that a bunch of us had penciled in as going to have a great tournament. Andrew Marweed. I mean, there's a lot of good names down this leaderboard. Garrett Gerthy ended up finishing in 71st place. He had a great opening round, and they got a little worse in round 2, and then he just had 2 really bad rounds in rounds 3 and 4. Emerson Keith down there. Evan Scott ended up down there. Not that he should expect to be higher, but it's just getting tougher to be up at the top of leaderboards these days. And it's very surprising to see someone as good as Calvin Heimberg and Kevin Jones, for that matter, both who have played very well at this course in the past, not even make the cash. All right, next question here.
Real quick, Charlie. Before you do,
ahead.
I want to offer an honorable mention for biggest letdown.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about Paige Pierce's round, the 18 over, being the worst round we've seen from a professional of her caliber?
Yeah.
Well, she didn't hold the title long. Emerson Keith shot a 20 over in the final round with a 14 on hole 12. A 14. The guy went OB 5 times on hole 12.
Wow. That's like when you watch a golfer on like island par 3 just keep hitting it into the water.
Uh-huh.
One right after the other. Oh, they made the green, but it rolled backwards into the water. Oh, they hit it over into the water. 5 OBs. He went bogey 11, octuple bogey on 12. I don't think I've ever said that phrase before. Triple bogey on 13, bogey on 14. Then he got birdie, and then went quad bogey, triple bogey to close out the tournament. I mean, you have to figure at some point during that hole 12, he was like, I don't care anymore. I'm just chucking it. Because, like, he played decently to that point, but a 20 over, my God.
He went from 10 under par after round 3 to a 10 over par by the end of the tournament.
And let's take a look. Was that literally the worst round of the day? It was.
Yep. Worst round.
It wasn't even very close.
No.
Dylan Horst had the second worst round at 13 over. Wow. He went from 10 under to 10 over on the tournament. Mm-hmm. Yikes. Man.
So
that's like where you get the low light reel on YouTube.
I didn't think Paige's round was going to be beat this weekend, but
it shows you how the context is different, right? We spent a lot of time talking about Paige's round because of where she was in the tournament and who she is as a player. And Emerson Keith is, really brutally awful 20 over round is just a footnote. Okay. What was the most informative performance this weekend?
Most informative meaning like what can we whose performance can we take the most away from?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Sure. Because I leave it to you to determine.
Okay. Because based on that criteria, like for example, like Paige's round, I don't consider Paige's performance informative. I don't think it's going to inform her career moving forward. So basing it on that criteria, I'd probably go with Valerie Mondahanu. I think that her performance was not a fluke, and I think all of her OB strokes show that she actually has room to do better than what she did depending on the course. And we've seen her getting up in the leaderboard in several tournaments. I think that this shows a bright future for Valerie, and I expect to see her up at the top at a lot of majors and non-majors alike.
I agree. I think she's really shown a lot this year. Super exciting player to watch. Very solid fundamentals, backhand, forehand, putting. And I think that she's going to be somebody who really makes a leap in the next couple of years into consistent contender at basically every tournament. My answer to this question is Kyle Klein. I think this solidifies for me, if it wasn't already, that Kyle Klein is, truly going to be a staple of the top of leaderboards at tournaments moving forward. For him to come out and shoot the way that he did in a round where a lot of the world's best players had big stretches of struggling is extremely informative about what he is capable of. The putting, the power, the precision. He had it all in that final round. And he's so young. He is so young. To have that poise at that age and having really shown it all season, to me, speaks volumes about where he can go. He has what it takes to be a multi-time major champion in the sport. And I think we really saw that unfold at Winthrop.
Last one for this little segment. Who do you think had the best bounce back for the tournament?
The best bounce back?
Yeah, whether that be from a bad hole, a bad round.
Sure. I think it's an easy answer for me. I mean, there's you could go a lot of ways with this question, but I'm going to go with Owen Scoggins, who took a 10 on hole 5 in round 1, and this is not someone who takes a 10. Paige Pierce taking a 10, you're like, all right, it happens sometimes. Her style, the aggression, sometimes going out of bounds. She can take a big number. Haley King can take a big number. Owen Scoggins doesn't take a big number. Owen Scoggins is making precise, accurate shots up the fairway, onto the green, and then making the putt. It's a game plan that works very well, and she ended up finishing in 6th place at this tournament, despite that 10 in round 1. And 6th place is very impressive. And she was only 4 strokes off the lead. She was only 1 stroke back of a tie for 3rd place. Like, she was very much in the conversation in that final round and, just couldn't quite come up with the shots that she needed. In fact, you could argue that the putter let her down a little bit. She had she 3-putted on hole 7. She missed 2 inside the circle putts. And, if that doesn't happen, she's right there heading down the stretch. Could have been in a tie for 2nd or 3rd. And so to me, the fact that she was even in the conversation at all after having a total blow-up hole is very impressive. Big bounce back.
I know the what-if-isms aren't really that informative, but if you were to remove that hole from her scorecard, she wins the tournament. Stroke-wise.
Right.
Not informative.
Just takes a par.
But it does show how bad that hole was for her. My answer for this question is Drew Gibson. And not because of any one blow up, but because dude's like a bouncy ball. Like that man took so many bogeys, so many double bogeys, and still finished in 4th place. I think he said on his Instagram something, I don't remember what he said exactly. I wish I had pulled it up. But he commented about how he could not keep the disc in bounds and still was thrilled with how he finished because of it. So the ability to keep going. I mean, final round, 10 and 11, double bogey, and then afterwards goes birdie, eagle, birdie.
Right.
Eagles, 999. It's amazing. That kind of bounce back is incredible. And I think it's a really valuable skill, and it shows a lot about Drew Gibson's game that I think bodes really well for him as he continues to move forward in his career.
Drew Gibson is such a fun player. I mean, there's just not a lot of players like him. With like crazy power and like the ability to get hot with the putter sometimes, and just an aggressive mindset. I mean, he had the same kind of thing go on in round 3 when he had a gazillion birdies in a row, then went bogey, double bogey, and then had 4 more birdies to close out the round. Like he was bouncing back and forth the whole tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And, even in that insane round 2, he has a very slow start and then goes, berserk to end up shooting 9 under. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It's a very exciting player. You often in the NBA, you talk about League Pass teams, like teams that you're really excited to watch on League Pass, even if they're not going to be the best teams or, nationally relevant teams, but they just have like the right combination of players or scheme or, offensive strategy to make them really fun to watch. Drew Gibson is a League Pass team. Like, it's like, oh, let's get a camera on Drew Gibson and just see what he's doing right now. And how about Simon? Simon threw an insane shot on 18. Was it 18? I forget what hole it was, but he did a Simon line. It's good to see Simon back, man. It was an 18. Was it 18?
Yeah, he made it all the way up to like that second tree.
Incredible. And like some Sky Anheuser, right? What a guy. I mean, look at his final round scorecard. Birdie, birdie, birdie. 4 straight bogeys. Par, birdie, bogey. Par, triple bogey. Eagle, birdie, par, bogey. Quadruple bogey, birdie.
Simon's back, baby.
I mean, it sucks because he could have been in the mix if he'd had a good round. He ended up shooting 5 over. He started the day at 15 under. If he'd had a really solid round, he might have been in the conversation to try to like be right at the top at the end. You obviously can't take a triple and a quad if you want to have that happen, but man, that's psycho scorecard winner for round 2. Unless you want to give it to Emerson Keith, or for round 4, that is. Unless you want to give it to Emerson Keith for the 20 over, which, wow. All right, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to look at some numbers from the weekend, and we are also going to talk about Player of the Year in both MPO and FPO. Stay with us. It's The Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. From 3D modeling to technical materials, Pound utilizes current technology to push product development beyond the current boundaries. But fancy software and high-tech materials mean nothing if you're not part of the actual building and testing of the bags. From the initial sketch to pattern sets, Pound cuts the materials and sews the prototypes together, ensuring that design and materials come together to achieve their ultimate goal, performing for players under all conditions. Check out the options at pounddiscgolf.com. Touring disc golf professionals understand the need to stay focused on their game plan during rounds. When they're focused, they're confident. And when they're confident, performance peaks. This is why so many touring pros wear Diameter apparel. Simply put, Diameter apparel is really, really comfortable, allowing players to stay focused on their game. Diameter apparel also happens to look amazing. Order online or find currently released designs at your local disc golf store. TDs and event coordinators are talking about how popular custom event and trophy jerseys are. Breathable, durable, beautiful, Diameter apparel. Welcome back to The Upshot. We are excited to debut a new segment today. It's called By the Numbers. We're going to take a look at some stats and info from the tournament. We'll do this periodically and condense some interesting stats into one little segment here. So Josh, take it away.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to something we mentioned a little bit earlier, and that's Drew Gibson and the way that Drew Gibson played this weekend. So Drew Gibson was incredible off the tee. His strokes gained tee to green was 24.46. The next best was Joel Freeman at 15.73 and Ricky at 15.70. After that, Nate Sexton is at 12.61, and it just goes down from there.
It's literally absurd numbers. He gained 10 strokes on the field.
Yeah.
like on the elite field, not the average player.
Almost 25 strokes gained tee to green is insane. That number is so high. And it's at a course that, I feel like is there to punish you. On the flip side, however, 21 OB strokes.
Yep. And that is the risk of using the strokes gained tee to green number.
Yes.
Because if you're running every green, you're going to get a lot of them, and you're going to get the benefit of that showing as strokes gained, because you're getting birdies on holes that other players aren't. But the OB is not included in the strokes gained calculation. So when you miss, you're not getting punished. So it's sort of misleading. I mean, it is misleading, but it goes, I think what it shows you is his game plan and the high risk, high reward strategy that he pursued. And it worked pretty well. He got fourth place.
It did. It really did. I think if he cleans up hole 11, I want to double check really fast. Drew Gibson on hole 11.
Over the tournament. Oh, man.
Over the tournament. Yep. Over the tournament. Double bogey in round 4. Double bogey in round 3. Par in round 2. And double bogey in round 1.
Oh, my God.
Guy went 6 over par on that hole over the tournament.
Oh, man.
Cleans that up. He's got a whole nother tournament for him.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
His strategy probably almost works.
You honestly wonder if he thinks back on it. It's like, you know what? Maybe I should just play that one for par. Maybe I shouldn't try too much on that one. I mean, you can't keep making the same mistake. That's brutal. All right, onwards. This was Paige Pierce, round 3, Paige Pierce's worst round since July 2010. I think we mentioned that in the show on after round 3. Just wanted to bring that back up. Just a exceptionally bad round from Paige Pierce. Best round, though, at the tournament was also Paige's. She shot a 1027 rated 61. The best round in the USDGC was Paul McBeth's round 3. It was a 1085 rated 55. So those were your best rounds.
Probably a little bit better than Chris Dickerson's 55 just due to the bad weather.
Yeah.
That's what I assume. Because they both shot a 55, but Paul's was in a little bit worse
slightly higher rated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. We were talking about Drew and giving him a hard time about OB strokes. Drew did not have the most OB strokes, though. That goes to our OB king, Garrett Gurthie, with 32 OB strokes.
Now, for what it's worth, I chose this one. I gave Garrett Gurthie OB king. He was not the most OBs at the tournament, but he was the most OBs of a top tier professional player.
Someone who you would expected to cash.
Yeah, right. So the players that finished the worst, finished almost last at the tournament. They were all in the 90s. Garrett Gurthie finished in 71st place. And had some good moments, had a lot of birdies, but also went OB 32 times. So he is the OB king.
Yep. The OB queen, by the same standard, someone who we expected to do better than she did, but did not because of OB strokes, was Maria Oliva at 29 OB strokes.
Yeah, great power, but I think it's tempting on holes out here when you have a lot of power to try to throw past the OB, and you can get burned a lot on that. So OB Queen Award goes to Maria Oliva. This was Paul McBeth's first playoff win since the Beaver State Fling in 2015. This stat, courtesy of Stat Mando over on Twitter, give them a follow. McBeth had lost 7 straight playoffs before winning this one against Kyle Klein to win the USDGC. Can you believe that?
No, that's crazy.
That's crazy, right? 7 straight he had not won. So his first win in a playoff since 2015. Amazing. And here's one from the Discord. Kyle Klein, and this is courtesy of Harry. Kyle Klein has made $37,000 in earnings since June 22nd of this year. More than doubling his career earnings, which were $33,000 before the start of the summer. So obviously there's 2 things going on there. Number 1, Kyle Klein has been playing great in the last 3 months. Number 2, prize money is fattening significantly, and particularly in the second half of this season, we've seen purses go up quite a bit with added cash reaching new highs that we've never seen before.
And that honestly should have been more after the Ledgestone cancellation when he got bumped down to 6th.
Right. When he had that torrid start and got it wiped off the board.
Yeah. It probably should be closer to 40.
Amazing. Well, those are some by the numbers. And we're going to look at some more numbers right now as we discuss the Player of the Year conversation in both divisions. Let's begin in FPO. We've pulled the numbers here. We have players' Elite Series wins, their finishes at majors. We are including the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship kind of as like part of the calculus here. I think to each their own on determining whether or not that's relevant. Somebody did say in Discord, I think it was Patrick Auburn who does kind of leads power rankings at Ulti World Disc Golf and has been a writer here for some time. He was saying that like it doesn't like we can say that Throw Pink feels like a major, but no one is going to remember it as a major in 3 years because it's not listed as a major. And it's a good point. It's a good point. When you go back in the history books, this won't count towards their major championship wins. And is anybody going to remember this tournament in 5 years in terms of, what happened or what was important about it? I mean, like I can hardly remember what happened 5 years ago in disc golf. And it's a good point. I think this tournament should become a major.
I agree.
And get that status because it feels like it has that level of importance. But anyway, let's set that aside. Let's take a look at the race. I think the name you have to look at first, of course, is Paige Pierce. Paige Pierce finishes first in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. She has 7 Elite Series wins. That's 3 more than anybody else. She won the U.S. Women's Championship. She's tied for the best average finish at tournaments with Katrina Allen at 3.3.
That does not include majors, though.
That's right. That's right.
So U.S. Women's, Throw Pink, and Worlds.
I think we're not really, Throw Pink we're sort of like leaving as this quasi in-between thing. Right. But if you include that, it's very close. Like Paige and Katrina are still going to be neck and neck.
Right.
They both have a major win this year. And so I guess, of course, the question, Josh, do you ding Paige for these things? Not really competing on the national tour and finishing in 16th. She skipped multiple events. And then having this blow up at Throw Pink. Or is it just clear still that when you look at the total season that she is the Player of the Year?
I think to answer that question, I have to look at who is the obvious second place in our minds, and that would be the other major winner, Katrina Allen. Katrina Allen took second on the Disc Golf Pro Tour and second on the National Tour. She had 4 wins, Jonesboro, Worlds, Delaware, and MVP. And then, she, same average finish like we talked about. If you look, though, at the actual number of events played in this calculation, Paige had 15 and Katrina had 17.
This is Elite Series and majors.
I don't think majors are included in that number because remember we excluded them from the finishing. So majors are not included in that number.
But everybody plays the majors. So
Right. So they both had 3 more if you include Throw Pink, Worlds, and U.S. Women's because we use Throw Pink as a quasi-major here. If you include, so there's a 2 tournament difference. I think it feels like there are more tournaments that Katrina played because I think Katrina played some Silver Series and Paige really didn't at all. But I'd have to go back and double check that. So I'm not positive.
Yeah, we did not include Silver Series in any of this analysis. Obviously it has a little, it impacts finish in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings somewhat.
Right. And so, no, I don't really knock her for that. And maybe I would have if Katrina had swept the national tour and taken maybe one or two more tournaments on the national tour, at which point I say, well, I mean, I know Paige didn't, she didn't beat Paige head to head at those tournaments, but that still matters. But the problem is that even when Paige wasn't there, it was kind of like fighting for the spoils between Katrina and Haley. And so, no, I don't knock her enough to take her off the podium. I think Paige is our player of the year in the FPO side.
I think so too. It's easy to have recency bias and feel like there's a different answer there, or to think like, oh, Missy Gannon should win player of the year. I mean, Missy Gannon won Des Moines. She won the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship. If you count that as an Elite Series, which I think we should, that means she's got 2 Elite Series wins. Because Paige's 7. It's just not there. The numbers aren't there for Missy. It's obviously been a great season for her best in some time. She finished 3rd in the Disc Golf Pro Tour, 7th in the National Tour, and wins the Throw Pink Women's Championship. Great year, but Paige had a stretch where she couldn't be beat.
Yeah.
When she came back from Hawaii, she absolutely dominated. Like, let's just go through the tournaments that Paige has won this year. You forget. Las Vegas Challenge, OTB Open, the U.S. Women's Championship, a major, Masters Cup, Portland, Ledgestone, Idlewild. And, 2nd at Worlds and 2nd or 3rd at a ton of tournaments. Don't look at what's happened the last 2 weeks to determine that. And again, let me just be clear. We're talking about the Ulti-World Disc Golf Player of the Year conversation. Right. The PDGA Player of the Year is an algorithmically based numbers game that has to do with your total competition over the entire year, including at A tiers. You can get points at all kinds of different tournaments. It's the reason that Paige went and played Music City Open, the NT finale, because she's trying to accumulate enough points to beat Katrina in this competition. Katrina plays more tournaments and therefore accumulates more points. We don't necessarily look as closely at A tiers or Silver Series as part of our thinking on this question. So this is more of a subjective exercise as opposed to the complete objectivity of the PDGA Player of the Year award. Haley King is also in the conversation. Just should note that 4 Elite Series wins, 3 of them NTs. Texas State's DDO, GMC, Music City. She won the national tour standings. She was 5th in the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Really good year. The clear number 3 behind Paige and Katrina, but I don't think she's done enough. Didn't win a major in order to win that award this year. And again, like a really, really good season. I think you can see the upward trajectory for Haley King, but she's going to have to do more to win Player of the Year past Paige, who's just won so many events. Well, let's move over to MPO. It's a 3-horse race. It's Eagle, Ricky, and Paul. Paul was really not in this conversation until after this weekend, in my opinion. Maybe in the conversation, but definitely was not going to win. And so this is actually super challenging because when you look at how things have played out, it is very difficult to assess who deserves this right now. And it really might come down to the Pro Tour Championship, Josh. Ricky finished 1st on the Pro Tour standings and the NT standings, has 4 Elite Series wins, Texas State's Jonesboro Preserve, and Ledgestone. Finished 7th at Worlds, 3rd at USDGC, and of those 3 guys had the best average finish at 4.1. That's compared to Paul's 5.9 and Eagle's 6.9. Eagle finished 2nd on the Pro Tour, 25th in the National Tour. He skipped quite a few events. He won Las Vegas, OTB Open, Portland, and the Great Lakes Open, giving him 4 Elite Series wins as well. He finished 8th at Worlds and 9th at USDGC. And Paul finished 4th on the Pro Tour, 2nd on the National Tour, has just 3 Elite Series wins, DDO, Des Moines, and USDGC, giving him... but he had the best finishes at majors. 2nd at Worlds, of course. 1st at USDGC. But his peripherals haven't been as good this year compared to those other 2 guys. So where do you go, Josh, if the season ended right now today, who do you pick?
The one thing for people who probably listen to those stats, they probably looked at it and thought to themselves, well, Eagle feels like the clear outsider of these three. I want to add one more stat that might make things a little bit more challenging. If you drop each player's worst finish and then recalculate their their average finish place, it becomes Eagle or Ricky at 3.4, still the best, but then Eagle a meager 0.2 points, finish points places behind Ricky at 3.6, and Paul stays at 5.1. So Paul actually was consistently worse at more tournaments than either Eagle or Ricky. Eagle having a 47th place finish at Waco and having a little bit fewer tournaments means that his average was disproportionately skewed by one really terrible event. And so throughout the season, though, it's actually Paul has been the consistently worst performer. Except at majors. At which point he cleans up.
It's a very difficult question.
This is so hard. And it would have been easier if Conrad had beat Paul by 2 strokes at Worlds.
Do you think so?
I really do. Because it took a 247-foot Anheuser throw-in to take Worlds away from Paul.
Which he would have swept the majors in 2021 if that hadn't gone in.
Yeah, if here's my question, and I don't know if this makes my decision any easier, but if Paul wins Worlds, is he Player of the Year?
I think he is. If you win both majors, I think it's enough for me to say that you deserve it, assuming that you have enough other strong performances. I mean, that would have given him a 4th Elite Series win, which would have tied him with Eagle and Ricky in a number of Elite Series wins, which for me, I think it's clear. Even if you discount Des Moines, which I think is fair, it was a weak field. It's still 4 wins and it's still both majors. And like, how do you say that he wasn't the best on the year then?
Right.
I think it actually matters that he didn't win Worlds.
I think so too. And now the question of this decision is, does close only count in horseshoes, hand grenades, and Player of the Year races? My answer is no. I am going to pick Ricky. And again, if Paul wins Pro Tour Championship, I think I flip my answer. I think I give it to Paul. If Eagle wins Pro Tour Championship, then I really hate things.
That makes it really murky.
If Ricky or Paul wins it, I think it solidifies it for either of their directions. Here's why I pick Ricky. First place on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, first place on the National Tour. It shows that he consistently dominated across a variety of courses, across geography, and throughout the entire season. It wasn't something that he had some really good wins, but then after that had a pretty lackluster season otherwise. The average finish of Paul that doesn't include the majors is actually pretty poor, I think. He finished on average outside the top 5.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's above 5th place technically. And granted, when you round, it probably is closer to 5th, but that's pretty poor, because when you look at the dropping the worst finish for all 3 of these guys and Katrina and Paige, he's the only one with an average above 5.
Yep.
It shows a pretty lackluster year that was saved
by his standards.
By his standards. Right. And honestly, I'm sorry, but by the Player of the Year standards.
Sure.
Like, but was saved by some amazing performances at majors. And that's why he is in the conversation, obviously. We mentioned that. But I do not think that being close at Worlds is enough to bump him over the edge. I think he has to win Pro Tour Championship before I would give it to Paul.
I was hoping we would disagree, but I don't think we do. I think Ricky's volume of competition, playing the Silver Series as well, which is part of the reason that he won the Pro Tour point standings, to win both the regular season tour points championships, basically, and to be meaningfully competitive at the majors, 7th and 3rd, to have the best average finish. I think it's enough. I think it's enough. Now, it's not a slam dunk.
No.
But I think that he showed over the course of this year that he was like the best player start to finish. And, if he'd won a major, it would have been a lock.
Yes.
If he wins the Pro Tour Championship, it's a lock. If Paul or Eagle wins the Pro Tour Championship, then we have to have some hard conversations, I think. But for me right now, I still think it's Ricky, although Paul has put himself very much back into the mix. And if Paul was to win, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. Paul, last year, the award went to Calvin Heimberg. Paul had a very good case for winning it, though. Calvin was the flashy name. It was the more exciting storyline. I could understand why voters decided on Calvin, but Paul had the better average finish. He was the best average finish in the MPO field last year, and he didn't win it, although he certainly could have and maybe deserved it. This year, that's just not the case. Mm-hmm. You have to rely heavily on him winning USDGC and obviously being the best of this group at the majors overall, having nearly won Worlds to give it. Now, the thing is, it's different if there's 4 majors and he was like the best finisher at all 4 majors.
Agreed.
I think. But the fact that there were only 2, I don't know. It's like hard to find that weight, the correct balance. So, you can go with the objective standards of the PDGA. I think it's probably going to go to Ricky. I guess we could calculate where things stand right now. But just when you look at it from a subjective standpoint, the full season, and you take it all in, I think it's Ricky. And I think the thing is funny, Ricky would probably trade it all for a major.
Especially the USDGC.
Right.
I'm going to hit you with some stats real fast that I think are going to be interesting. So we did not consider Silver Series at all. Ricky had a pair of Silver Series wins, including the Open at Belton, which, speaking of things that feel like things that they aren't, the Open at Belton was a whole 18 showdown between Ricky, Paul, and Calvin, and Ricky took it home. I mean, it was a loaded field that came down to the wire, and Ricky won it. And so, I mean,
it was like the first tournament that had real spectators since COVID. People were like, Ricky told me directly, this feels more like an Elite Series event than some of the events we've been playing because of the level of competition and the spectators.
The Open at Belton, Des Moines, I'm not sure. If you're looking at that. Here's the other thing, and this is the stat. I just looked at it. It blew my mind. Ricky had 6 second place finishes.
Wow.
On the Elite Series. DDO, Portland. Hold on, I gotta get over there. Delaware, MVP, GMC, and Music City Open.
That's amazing. I mean, he was the most consistently dominant player this year.
Without a doubt.
Which is why I think he deserves the award if you don't account for what's going to happen this coming weekend. So we'll have this conversation again if things come up, but he can shut it all down with a win at the Pro Tour Championship, $30,000 prize. That'd be nice. And it's a fun conversation to have because all 3 of those guys have had great years, and man, McBeth really making up for an otherwise below his standard season with this win. So that is going to do it for today's show. Make sure to tune in for our subscriber bonus segment. It'll be out tomorrow, Wednesday, with Sean Jack from the Disc Golf Pro Tour. We're going to be talking about sponsorship in disc golf with Sean. He's their director of partnerships and has been working to sell disc golf to outside companies for many years now. Things are starting to turn the corner for disc golf. Some big sponsors coming up here at the Pro Tour Championship. You've got Guaranteed Rate, the title sponsor, a home mortgage company, as well as LL Bean. Enough said. A household, apparel brand name, outdoor brand name, and Johnsonville Sausages. So we're going to talk to Sean about those deals and what's going on in the wider world of sponsorship in disc golf. So you can become a subscriber for less than $4 a month at discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. We have tons of great mail. We're getting to it on Thursday. as we preview the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. So make sure to join us there. Get your mail in, upshot@ultiworld.com. Hit us up in the Discord if you're a subscriber. And we will talk to you in 2 days.